The following is a presentation of Stewed Productions.
This is InterBrews.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of InterBrews. Sorry, I'm messing with these buttons here. Mike McKim is with me from Austin, Cuvee Coffee CEO, founder, and guru of all things coffee and beer, really, with me today. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm great, thanks.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. It's we've been chatting back and forth a little bit, first on LinkedIn and then more civilized modes of communication. Now we're actually face to face. So thanks for being on InterBrews. I'm a big fan of yours. I don't know if you knew you had fans.
Only my wife and kids.
Well, and then count me in there too. So it's been one of those things where when I got started on this podcast 10 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of there were 5 breweries in Houston. There were, I don't know, maybe 10 in the Austin area.
Wow.
And but your place, Cuvee Coffee in Austin, was one of those places where I was like, it kind of hit me for the first time that coffee and beer could be served side by side. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's the most amazing thing. It blew my mind. And I became a fan. And
not only can they be served side by side, but they should be served side by side. Yes.
It's one of those things where they really should end-cap your day. Like, to have the great, the perfect day, and your catchphrase, it's 5 a.m. somewhere. Here in the last few weeks, I've been getting up around 5 a.m. a lot more, sometimes even earlier than 5 a.m.
Yeah.
When before, for 20 years, I've worked nights, go into work at like 4 p.m., that type of thing. Mm. And it has completely changed the way I look at the day and like how much you can actually get done in a day.
Yeah.
And that phrase, it's 5 a.m. somewhere, is so true. It's like those early parts of the day are just so, they're so precious, right?
Oh, yeah.
And coffee, like, when you have a hot cup of coffee, delicious coffee, and you spend the time and the ritual to get it ready, and the steam hits your face and the aroma of the coffee, it says, it's like God's way of saying good morning, just just touches your face. Bless you to whoever that was that sneezed in the background. But anyway, I'm as big a fan of coffee as I am of beer, and I'm a fanatic about beer. So anyway, thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a lot in common then, so that's good.
Yeah. So I guess let's go all the way back to the beginning. What is the Cuvee story? You can go on the website and see it, but let's hear it from the man himself. How did Cuvee get started? How did you get to the point where you're like, I'm gonna open the badass place in Austin that has coffee and beer?
Well, the backstory on Cuvee just in general is, I graduated from high school, didn't have a ton of direction, joined the Navy, and then through a series of events ended up in college and dropped out of college and did all kinds of weird things. While I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, somehow I landed in the telecom industry. And I landed in the telecom industry in, like the mid 90s. So the .com boom was going on, and I was selling fiber optic cable, and life was good. And a buddy of mine and I, we went snow skiing with our wives, and we were both kind of entrepreneurial in general. Mm-hmm. I said, hey man, I've got an uncle, owns a really cool business, entrepreneur, drives a Ferrari, so he's got to be cool.
Yes.
Let's go visit him. So we go visit my Uncle Carl, and he owns a company called Agtron that makes food analyzation equipment. And one of the things he was working on was a machine that measures the degree of roast of coffee. So basically you grind some coffee, you put it in a machine, it uses some, near infrared technology to reflect off certain chemical compounds, assigns coffee a number, and that's the degree of roast. And so it's the international industry standard for roast classification. So he's a pretty smart coffee guy, right? He had a little roaster set up in his warehouse, and he said, "Have you guys ever roasted coffee before?" My buddy Patrick and I said, "No, we haven't." So we went back, we roasted coffee with him, and we both were like, "This is awesome." And so we didn't go skiing that day. We roasted coffee all day instead. And it's this is, I think, where the biggest overlap is, because I've been telling people this forever. It's like every, craft brewery owner you've ever met. They start brewing beer in their basement or garage or whatever, and their friends and family are like, "Man, this is really good. Can I buy some?" And you start selling it, and then you're like, "Hey, we should start a brewery." And that's exactly how coffee roasting started for me. We bought the roaster, put it in the garage, and started roasting coffee and selling to friends and family.
This portion of InterBrews is brought to you by Equipment Management Services. Need a custom-built shipping container at your brewery, on your land, or in your backyard? EMS can do it all. From bars with tap walls to bathrooms to cold boxes to offices or anything else you can think up, EMS is your solution. From container purchase to build out, all the way to delivery, Equipment Management Services is ready to serve you. Go to ems-llc.com to get started with your container needs today, and check them out on Instagram at EMS LLC to see their artistry in action. Equipment Management Services, shipping container and service excellence, managing your world, creating your vision.
I've looked at roasting coffee because I have homebrewed too. Some of my friends make fun of me because it's been a long time since I've homebrewed, but I'm like, there's so much good beer, commercial beer out there. It's kind of hard to justify making my own, mediocre beer at home when I can have really good beer, 2 minutes from my house or whatever. And it's only gotten better. That initial jumping into, roasting coffee, I've looked into it a little bit. I would imagine that's, a little difficult when you get started. What was the setup when you first started roasting your own coffee?
Like the physical setup or the state of the industry?
Yeah, well, the physical setup, like, were there, like, I know now you can get some home roasting setups, like home roaster kind of stuff, smaller things. But what was it then? Like, just kind of like, was it like with home brewing where, it used to be old like milk equipment that people had to retrofit, or how did that work?
No, so this is the beauty of being in the telecom industry back in, the mid to late 90s, and selling fiber optic cable, which every phone company was buying and putting in the ground. So we were making really good money, and not because we were good salespeople, just because there was a shortage of product and everybody wanted it. So no, to answer your question, our first hobby roaster was a 10-kilo Samiak. So very much a commercial industrial coffee roaster that, dude, I have no idea how many millions of pounds of coffee we put through that thing before it's still in the warehouse here.
Really?
Yeah, it's back in the corner just collecting dust.
What was the first? So I always ask, like, when I talk to brewers, I was just at a new brewery in Conroe, my last episode, and so I always ask, like, what was that first homebrew batch? What did you have a target, like something you were trying to hit with your first roast, or were you just saying, let's just try it and see what happens? Or
no, well, so that was another thing that my uncle had created. He created he was super progressive in the industry, and it was funny. There was a huge backlash against him because of the things that he was doing. He was drilling holes in the roaster and putting temperature probes in, so there were measurables, and he created a computer to help control the roaster. And all the old school roasters started screaming that he was taking the craft out of coffee roasting, and so no, he created this system. He was teaching roasting classes on how to use the system and everything, and he just told me, whatever you do, pay more money for higher quality coffee and people will notice. Here's the way to roast, here's the roasting profiles, go to town. And unless we made a mistake, honestly, we never created a bad batch of coffee.
That's good. Yeah. I'm when you look at the the lineage of where we are with coffee now, there's a lot of really good coffee, but it wasn't like that when you think like post World War II and everything got industrialized and real, like I guess the war effort, we got to have that freeze dried coffee and that sort of thing. Beer went through a similar kind of deal, like dumbed down, just until we had basically, 3 types of beer or 3 brands of beer making the same type of beer. It's when I look at what's available in the coffee world now, like it just on my desk in front of me, I've got a couple of cans of Nitro cold brew, Cuvee Nitro cold brew, and the concentrated cold brew.
Nice.
Which is I love coffee. I love it all throughout the day. I had to take a break from it for a little while, which I would actually. It sounds funny, like I would. Same thing with beer. I was dealing with anxiety, just like everybody else is nowadays, right? But I actually had to take a break from it while I got all that under control, and so I went about a month, maybe 2 months without any coffee at all.
Wow.
And it was one of those things where I had 2 cups every morning, maybe one later in the day. And when I came back to it, I had to respect it. I had to because I tried to go with a full glass, and it would just like launch me into orbit.
Right.
And because I got so sensitive to the caffeine. But now I've finally I was like, all right, I'm going to dial it back and step it back up. And now I'm back to where I can really, really enjoy coffee every morning without, wondering, is this going to trigger a panic attack, or is this going to, so, it was touch and go there for a while. But
wow.
It was one of those days where it was like when I realized, I'm finally back to enjoying a cup of coffee. It was kind of a mission to get back to it. I recommend I recommend taking a little time off every once in a while from the things that you love the most, whether it's coffee or beer or whatever it is, right? And then coming back to it and really enjoying it. It was eye opening, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you gone a day without coffee in 20 years? Is that?
And that's I'm sure I have, especially if I travel. Sometimes, I'd rather drink no coffee than bad coffee, just like I'd rather drink no beer than bad beer. Yeah. But I can relate, man. I did a 75-day program where I didn't drink any alcohol at all. And that first beer on day 76 was pretty refreshing.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. It's almost spiritual, when you finally get back to it. And when you're immersed in something, whether it's beer, coffee, or whatever, and you're in it all the time because you love it, sometimes you lose track of why you not why you love it, but just if it's so readily available. I guess the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder. That kind of, there may be some actual wisdom to that. I recommend it. I guess that's my 2022 life advice for anybody that needs life advice. Take a break from stuff. But anyway.
Well, the one thing I learned too is I actually, just to help me as I got through, especially the first 2 weeks, is I was drinking non-alcoholic beer. And there's some really good ones out there. But that's when I realized, holy shit, I really love beer if I'm drinking it for the flavor and not the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a beer podcast. So where did so obviously the coffee was something that you gravitated towards with your uncle and everything, but where did the love for beer come from, and when did you, it seems like once you discover that coffee and beer, there's so many similarities and crossovers and complementary, aspects of them. When did you first realize, coffee and beer, that's the ticket?
That's a good question. I shouldn't say not as long as I can remember, but as far as my adult life goes, coffee and beer have always been 2 things that just I consumed. The idea of putting coffee and beer together in the coffee bar, was 2 things. One, sometimes I want to drink beer, in the afternoon, I don't want to drink coffee because it keeps me awake.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is hard to make money selling a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
The profit margin on beer is way better.
Did you ever try home brewing or any of that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Man, I used to love to homebrew, but and I went down that rabbit hole and, bought all kinds of cool gadgets and, all that sort of stuff. I quickly realized A, I wasn't saving any money, and B, I was not making better beer than what I could buy.
Yeah, that's true. The one blessing I've had, well, not the one, but one of the blessings I've had from doing this podcast is I've gotten to try some of the world's best beers and be around some of the best brewers, and it's remarkable how good they are at making really good beer, and how I'm not that. And so it's like I want to get back into home brewing at some point, especially to teach my girls when they get a little closer to legal drinking age, to understand what goes into it and to have more of a an appreciation or respect for what it is. But we've got so many good beers, great beers that are just so readily available now. I think I've channeled all my the gadgets and stuff for home brewing. It'll suck you in. I call it homebrew creep. It's like it starts in a cabinet and then it takes over a bigger cabinet and then it's half your cabinets and then it's in the garage and the kitchen and then there's another room and then you've built the shed out back and it's taken over and it'll creep on you. But I think I've channeled all the gadgetry into doing this podcast. I've got more gadgets and technology than I really should have. But
it's easy to do.
Yeah. It's fun though. But anyway, so Cuvee, your shop in Austin, when did you open? What was the year that opened? Was it?
I think it was 7.
Okay.
7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started the roasting company in '98. So this is year 24.
Okay.
24 in March. And then, we did the coffee bar. We were always a wholesale coffee roaster. We built the business selling to independent coffee houses and restaurants. And then, for some dumb reason, I decided I wanted to have a retail shop too. So I did that.
So, that's one of my things. When I first saw Cuvee, it sparked to me like this. I was like, that would be awesome to have that if I could, because I'm in the Houston area and you're, in Austin. It's like, that's what my neighborhood needs is if I could just go pluck Cuvee coffee and put it in my neighborhood, life would be perfect. And I would be broke. So maybe that's why that hasn't happened, or it's a good thing that it hasn't. But it's been one of those things where I've thought, having a place like yours would be really neat. So I would imagine, you said the margins on coffee. I've got a lot of like nerd business questions for you. Maybe I can do that at another time. But owning a bar / coffee shop, what are the best parts and what are the most challenging parts?
Well, I mean, the best part is, I've always got a place where I can go drink coffee or beer.
Yeah.
A lot of times if I schedule meetings outside of the office, I'll make them there, which is great. Mm-hmm. That side of the business is super social, which is cool. And the coffee industry in general, like the beer industry, I think is a very social industry. But, I office at the roasting facility here. And so, there's a lot of times where, I'm back in my corner and I don't see anybody unless it's on the computer screen.
Yeah. Okay. Beer question. What have you been drinking lately? Is there anything like seasonally or something like that just came out maybe in the Austin or from an Austin brew or something that's really like, I don't know, tickled your fancy lately?
Well, obviously I drank my fair share of Sputnik from Austin Beer Works. This is our 10th anniversary of doing that coffee beer with them, which was really cool.
I did a few shows in Austin. Gosh, I guess you said 10 years?
10, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it was not before they started packaging it, obviously, because it hasn't been packaged for too long. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I got to try some. I think they had actually. I guess it's the statute of limitations has run out now. They canned some with no labels. It was just the silver cans, and I got to take a few with me after that show. And
nice.
I felt like the king of the world. Like, that's when I knew, like, yeah, this podcast was a good idea. Those guys are great, and it's been too long since I've been in Austin to do shows, but it's it was that's great beer. Sputnik is just it's a coffee stout that's just smooth and just it's everything great about coffee and beer. Like that it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I love those guys. They're such a good group of people, and they make outstanding beer.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the iterations they did of Sputnik is really cool.
Yeah.
El Sputniko, it's got cocoa nibs and cinnamon, and they're just super creative, and not for the sake of being creative. They're smart,
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful with their creativity. But I see your Lone Pint behind your head there, your Lone Pint sign.
Yes.
And that's the beer I usually keep on tap at home.
Okay.
Is Yellow Rose.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, yeah. Yellow Rose is fantastic. Blake, it's actually not far from here. It's actually one of the closer breweries. It's probably like 12, 13 minutes from my house, which translated to Houston drive time. That's just right around the corner. So
that's right around the corner. Yep.
Yeah, it's I love Lone Pint. I did, since this is a little later in the day, it's almost 5 o'clock. I got a beer for me to enjoy. I got Live Oak, their Primus, yeah. Eisenbach. So
yeah,
I'm gonna crack that open now. Hope you don't mind, but
I don't mind at all.
What's your wheelhouse when it comes to beer styles? Is there something you gravitate towards more than?
I'm a hophead, total hophead. Yeah. So on tap here at the office, we have ABW, Megaflora, and Flavor Country.
Okay.
And then at home I have Yellow Rose. So you kind of see where my affinity lies.
Yeah, it's the spectrum of IPAs has really blown up over the last few years. Do you crave the West Coast? Do you like the hazies? What are your thoughts on all the spectrum of IPAs?
Man, I appreciate them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This portion of InterBrews has been brought to you by Equipment Management Services. Go to ems-llc.com to get started with your container needs today, and check them out on Instagram at EMSLLC to see their artistry in action. Equipment Management Services, shipping container and service excellence, managing your world, creating your vision.
I'm all over the map when it comes to, like, it depends on the moment in the day and what we're eating or what I ate yesterday or what beer did I, like, that's the hardest part, is going to, like, the store to buy beer. It's like, what am I in the mood for now, but what am I going to be in the mood for tomorrow and the next day and the next day? And it's like, I'm about to spend $100 on beer, because I can't figure it out. I can't honestly say that this one beer will suffice.
Yeah.
Like hazy IPAs and then the West Coast, sometimes I'm just you crave that hop punch.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just so good. It's an amazing time to be a beer lover.
Oh man, it's so funny. I think coffee, you said coffee and beer parallel each other in a lot of ways, and I think that one of the ways is, I went on a coffee journey that led me to where I am now, but I also went on a beer journey. Like, I used to drink Coors Light. It's the only beer I ever drank.
Mm-hmm.
And then one time, I think I was at like Costco or something like that, and I saw this Sam Adams, and I was like, I guess I'll give that a shot. I'll buy a case of that. And then I was just like, oh, whoa, flavor. What is this? And then I started just kind of taking baby steps, and I branched out, and I had Sierra Nevada after that. And then I was like, hops, what in the world? And then I picked up a 6-pack of, went into like a Specs or something, and I picked up a 6-pack of Flying Dog, doggy style pale ale.
Yeah. And
that just set me down a total rabbit hole.
Yeah. You can kind of tell, like, when people came into craft beer, like, you're talking about brands outside of Texas. Somebody coming into craft beer now, somebody in Austin is going to have a very local, very Austin, kind of path through that beer discovery landscape, but then somebody in Houston's going to have a very Houston based one. It's it used to be the Sierra Nevadas and the Sam Adams and Clown Shoes and like all these beers that were like, we got into the market, and it's like, oh yeah, this is all, go to Specs or wherever, and it's like, we got to try all of these, and it's like a mission to go and try all this beer. But now we have so much good beer in Texas. And so much beer like in Houston and Austin. Like, when I travel around quite a bit around Texas, And you know, I'm when I go to say like Temple or Fredericksburg or wherever we were driving around, or Dallas. We were just in Dallas last week. You know, I want to drink beer from there. Like when I'm in Austin, I want Austin beer. And there's if it's been a few months or however long since you've been in that area, you're coming into something new. And man, Texas has such good beer.
It does. You know, I'm always amazed. So breweries will come by and they'll drop samples off at the coffee bar, and I'll go in and somebody will say, "Oh yeah, somebody dropped samples off for you to try." And I'll go in the back and I'll grab these bottles, samples that they brought, and I'm like, "What is this brewery? I've never even heard of them before." I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I've been doing this podcast, like I said, for 10 years. When I started, there were 5 breweries in Houston, and now it's hard to keep up. It's hard to, like, with the new breweries. I was at a new one, Foss, last week, which is in Conroe. Of course, the area that I'm trying to cover is up, Galveston all the way up to College Station. It's a pretty big area. But it's a job that somebody's got to do, and dang it,
you're the man for the job.
I'm here to do it. Somebody's got to drink all that beer and talk about it, and fawn over the people that make it. But it is hard to keep up. Like it's
really hard.
Yeah, it used to be like you go into the beer aisle, and HEB has a fantastic beer selection. I probably say this a lot, and people are probably tired of hearing about it, but I'll say it again. HEB has a fantastic, typically, I guess it depends on the HEB, but my HEB has a really good beer selection. My beer guy David, he's fantastic. He's always got new stuff coming in. He always like, "Hey, come here, check this out," and something new that I've never, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." But it's just, it used to not be that way. It used to be like, oh, I could go to the beer aisle. I was like, I've tried all of these. What am I in the mood for to have again? And that's not the case anymore at all.
This portion of InterBrews is brought to you by Stewed Productions. Are you looking to start a podcast to promote your business? Do you need copywriting for social media, advertising, or blog posts? If you want voiceover, web design, video editing, podcast consultation, and more, Stewed Productions is your answer. Visit stewedproductions.com and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for more information.
What makes great coffee great? Like,
I mean, it starts with the raw ingredient, right? And there's definitely different levels of quantifiable quality in what we call green coffee or raw coffee, unroasted coffee. So, one of the sayings in the coffee industry, the roasting industry, is you can't make a bad coffee taste good, but, it's really easy to make a good coffee taste bad. So, starting with a high quality raw product, and then, depending on the way you roast it, you could turn it into something delicious.
Well, okay. So here's where I've got to pick your brain, because I feel like with coffee, I'm kind of like where I was year one with beer. You want to try as much as you possibly can, all new stuff all the time. And now, I'm into different methods of preparing the coffee, whether it's pour over or French press or whatever. What is it with the different methods? Is one like particularly, like, is it better for a certain type of roast, or how do you decide on how to prepare the coffee, and what's your favorite? And just kind of open-ended question, like on coffee preparation, like what do you?
Yeah. It's a good question. It's kind of like, are there certain glass shapes that make beer taste better?
I'm a beer glass nerd. That's why I'm drinking out of this Weizenbach glass. I actually looked it up because, Weizenbach, that's different than a Hefeweizen, but it's like, just drink out of. So yeah, I'm pretty pretentious about it, but I acknowledge it and embrace it.
Yeah, no, and it's not that it's pretentious. It's that different glasses give you a different experience, even though it's the same beer. And I think brewing methods are the same. You can take the same coffee and do it in multiple brewing methods, and it'll taste slightly different in each one.
Do you have a favorite?
I really probably mostly stick to espresso and Chemex.
Okay. Chemex. So is that Chemex like pour over? Is that, or what?
Yeah, the Chemex is like it looks like a science project. So
Yeah.
it's a
Oh,
glass
okay.
beaker.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is the filters are really thick,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you don't get, a lot of solids in your coffee.
Yeah.
So it's really, really clean.
Okay.
So I would say for coffees that have, like lots of acidity or, interesting notes, the Chemex is really good because it doesn't get muddied up with a lot of body and soluble like a French press does.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, the Chemex is made out of glass and it's not real thick glass.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of thermal retention in glass. So it cools the coffee, as it's brewing.
Yeah.
And, the closer something is to your body temperature, the more flavor you taste. So the hotter or colder it is, the less flavor. The closer it is to your body temperature, the more flavor. So I tend to drink my coffee, warm, not hot.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. Now let me like, how do you take your coffee? Do you ever add cream and sugar or any type of spice or anything like that, or you just
I'll add. Yeah, I'll make cappuccinos every once in a while for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, milk and coffee are kind of made to go together, man.
Yeah. That's one thing. Like I was very much just like I took that. I was that attitude. No, I just want my coffee. I just want coffee in my coffee. And then when I took my break, I came back and added, started adding a little cream or whatever. Like whole cream, like or whatever, and it's like, hey, there's no sugar, carbs, or whatever. It's won't make me as fat, but it's the texture and the way they play and the way you can the texture of the milk if you froth it or whatever. It's it's like it really plays well. I don't know. It's fun. Like in the morning, like when I wake like at 5 a.m. It's to start that day with a little bit of artistry and appreciation and all that. It's like, oh, it's really good. It's I don't know. I can't. It's like in the moment, it's like an aha moment every morning. Like this is right, but to put words to it, like what is this actually? I don't know like what the phrase would be. It's like they have the German term where you like Cuvee would be one of these places. It's Gemältigkeit. Have you ever heard that? I'm probably butchering it.
No.
It's like it's a word that we don't even have in English, but it conveys like the essence of you're in a comfy place next to a warm fire with a blanket on you, with people you like, eating things that you love, and that's all wrapped up in Gemältigkeit.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but
it sounds good.
Yeah, and I feel like the perfect cup of coffee in the morning is that, right? It soothes, it warms. It's like you're up early. You were just in your cozy bed. Now you're, it's like you're out into the day again. But then you're able to, coffee turns on your brain, and wakes you up. Obviously there's the caffeine, but I feel like there's more to it. Maybe you can speak to that. But you're able to focus on the potential of the day. Like every day has its, it's like, oh, what is today going to be? Who knows? Let's find out.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I think there's, and you said the word earlier, ritual, and I think coffee is super ritualistic for people. And then there's a lot of cognitive benefits to coffee, and obviously caffeine is one of them. So yeah, it's kind of, it's a no-brainer morning drink.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of morning drinks, one thing I take, and I've kind of nerded out on health and some of that kind of stuff lately, but like I'll take some supplements before I go to bed. One of them is L-theanine. I don't know if you can take it with coffee, like 200 milligrams, and it kind of counterbalances the caffeine to where you get a super focused, I don't know, it's like this ultra focus. Have you ever tried coffee and L-theanine together?
No.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I will check it out.
I take it before I go to bed because it makes you, have really deep sleep and really vivid dreams too. Andrew Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, on his podcast, he nerds out on all the supplements and things like that. That's where I got all of that. But anyway, L-theanine, it's just an amino acid.
Yeah.
And like 200 milligrams with a cup of coffee, and it's really good for focus. But you don't have to have it in the morning. You guys, did you invent Nitro Coffee or did you just make it super cool? Like were you?
No, I was the originator.
Okay. Nitro Coffee is brilliant. Where did the idea come from? Was it just like, were you drinking a Guinness one day and thought, we could do this with coffee? Or how did that come about?
It was actually even it was even a little closer to home than that. The whole entire story on how this works, it was or how this came about was 2007. So while when I started roasting coffee, I was incredibly unsuccessful at building a business. So I was forced to take a job, right, to pay my bills. So from 2001 to 2006, I worked for an espresso machine company called La Marzocco. The company's based out of Seattle. And I was roasting coffee on the side the whole time, and everybody knew I was doing that, and they thought it was cool. And I think, it helped me sell espresso machines and all that sort of stuff. Well, finally, I got to the point where, the roasting business grew, my sales territory was growing, so I wasn't really doing either job that well. So I ended up leaving that espresso machine job. But in 2007, they kept me on as a consultant for a year to work with some of the salespeople on coffee stuff. So anyway, that's just backstory. I went out to Sedona. I'm 99% sure it was Sedona, with one of the sales guys, and we went to visit this coffee shop owner, roastery/coffee shop owner. We're having a meeting, and I'm watching all these high school age kids come in, and he's pouring them a drink off a beer tap, and he's handing it to them. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, this is weird. This guy's serving beer to 16-year-old kids. So finally, there was a break in the meeting. I said, what are you serving these kids? And he said, oh, let me show you what I'm doing. And so he takes me in the back, and he was brewing hot coffee, and he was dumping it into a homebrew keg, adding milk and vanilla syrup, and then he put it on tap.
And that's it.
And I thought, oh my God, this is genius.
Yeah.
So I came back to Texas, and all my wholesale customers, right away, I was like, the cold brew that you're making, put it in a keg and put it on tap, and people will lose their minds. And every single person I told that to told me the same thing. They said, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I was like, all right, well, I guess that's a dumb idea.
No, I was one of those guys that lost his mind when I first saw it.
So that was 2007. So then fast forward in 2011, I read an article that 80% of the tea that's consumed in the U.S. is consumed over ice. And it just kind of rekindled my interest in cold brew. And most everybody was making cold brew the same way. And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I just started tinkering. And one night while I was in the warehouse, I had actually picked up a 4-pack of left-hand milk stout, Nitro, in bottles. And so I go to open the first bottle, and I'm reading the instructions about, crack it and pour it hard and all that. And so I do that, pour it into a glass, and I'm just watching the cascade. And I go, this is cool. This is what I need to do with cold brew.
Yeah.
And so I actually got on the phone the next morning, and I called Left Hand. And I ended up getting through to the head brewer, guy whose name was Roe. Head brewer at that time. I have no idea if he's still there, but I told him who I was and what I was doing. He goes, hold on a minute. He puts me on hold. Here's what's crazy about this. Our local rep from Austin was actually at the brewery that day and was standing in Roe's office when I called.
Oh, wow.
And this guy, Roe, says, do you know some coffee roaster guy, down in Austin or something? He goes, Mike McKim? He goes, yeah, they always have our beer on tap. They always have Left Hand on tap on their Nitro tap and blah, blah, blah. And he gets back on the phone with me. He's like, all right, what do you want to know about Nitro? And so that's how I started down the path of Nitro. And 2011, we were the first people to launch it in kegs at a Slow Foods event here in Austin. 2014, we were the first people to can it. And at that time, we had to import. So Ball had the widget can, but we had to import them from Wales. So they were only in the UK.
Okay.
So we had to import the widget cans from the UK. I reached out to Guinness about licensing their widget, and they sent me this 8-page letter that basically said, ha ha ha, no. Yeah, so that's how nitro was invented or spawned.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where, like, once you try it, you're like, yeah, how come this hasn't been a thing forever? Because it's so good, and it's like all the qualities that make, you know, a nitro beer so much more enjoyable, or just another, you know, area of enjoyment. How, you know, silky smooth it is and everything. Same thing with the nitro coffee. It's just yeah, it's just so good. And
Yeah.
the fact that you can can it now. So there's a widget inside of each can. It's just like,
Yes.
okay. That, to me, that always seems magic. Like to get the nitro, like, you know, there's the big psh when you open it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It just it's not secret sauce or anything like that. It just creates turbulence in the can when you open it. So, you know, it gives you just a little bit more nitro effect.
So, okay, so when you brew it, is it already? Well, I'm going to go just completely dumb right now. So when you can it, it's already carbonated. Like, is it the blend? Is it the same, like 50-50, like nitro to CO2, or how does that?
No, see, that's the one thing that sucks with coffee is you can't use CO2.
Okay.
The carbonic acid makes coffee taste terrible.
Ah, yes. Okay.
So you have to use 100% nitrogen, and the downside to that is CO2 and nitrogen are super volatile. So you get awesome nitro effect. Like when you open a Guinness or a nitro beer,
Right.
it's always a blend of nitrogen and CO2. We have to do only nitrogen. So after we steep and filter it, we put it in, and we have all beer brewing equipment. So we have a 12,000 square foot brewery where we do all this. We can it ourselves, all that sort of stuff, keg it. And we steep it, filter it, and then we put it into bright tanks and we saturate it with nitrogen and agitate it and saturate it for 72 hours. So the nitrogen is completely suspended in the coffee prior to canning. And that's really the most important part of it.
Are there any centrifuges or anything like that involved? Is that a?
We don't have any centrifuges now.
Okay. I've just always heard that, like, the nitro beers are, like, to get, you know, like Dave Fougeron at Southern Star. He went on a 30-minute. I wouldn't call it maybe a rant. Dave rants. It's probably a rant. Where, like, the proper way to do nitro, he's talking about buried hatchet stout or something. You know, if you're really going to do it properly. And he mentioned centrifuges somewhere in there. I vaguely remember, but I don't know. I was trying to sound smart. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there a certain roast that goes better over, you know, with nitrogen, or, you know, versus others? Is it like you know, darker brew, or you know?
No. I mean, just in general, our roasting style, we kind of live in the medium roast world. And then we go a little bit darker than medium and a little bit lighter than medium, but we don't get super light or super dark. That's just kind of our style. Okay. But no, I mean, I've made cold brew, nitro cold brew with almost every coffee that we have, and they're all special in their own right, for sure.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's a lot to. It's like a you know, note to self. Get down and, you know, go try as many as possible. What is your record for coffees in a day?
Like, how many have I drank?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know. You know, it's funny. I don't drink a ton of coffee. I taste a lot of coffee, you know, on a weekly basis. But I mean, I'm a 2 or 3 cup a day person. Although I think it was yesterday morning. I don't know what was going on, but I came in and man, I drank 4 double espressos just like back to back to back to back. And I paid for it, man.
Yeah. Have you slept since?
Yeah, it wasn't that. The caffeine, I get foggy if I drink too much caffeine.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like your body can only absorb so much.
Yeah.
And then it just goes other places. I don't know what it does and where it goes, but yeah.
Well, and especially espresso, right? It's so concentrated because it's so much coffee, so little water. It's kind of like, you know, it's like chugging triple IPAs.
Which I've done. So I'm like, I know exactly what you're saying.
Perfect.
Yeah. I just have to say real quick, Chip, this Live Oak, the Weizenbach, the Primus, it's delicious. It's a good cold weather beer. has a, it's like a, almost like a raisiny kind of banana, like toasted banana bread or something.
Yeah, and Live Oak is awesome. I got history with those guys too, man. They used to let us bring our kegs when we were kegging cold brew.
Mm-hmm.
We used to show up with a pickup truck full of dirty kegs, and they would let us come in and use their keg washer to clean and sanitize our kegs.
That's cool. Yeah, Live Oak is one of those breweries where, like, I just love everything that they do. I don't think there's anything that they put out that I haven't enjoyed.
Yeah.
And like the Grzycki, all of that. The smoky stuff. Speaking of, can you do like I know that depending on the roast you can get more smoky kind of things going, but is there such thing as like a Roush coffee, smoked coffee kind of thing?
Well, just by nature of the roasting process, you go through different phases, and kind of the last phase before pyrrolization is caramelization.
Okay.
And once you start to caramelize coffee, all the sugars in the coffee, that's when you start to get that smokiness.
Okay.
So that's where darker coffees, you can, if you go, I won't say anybody in particular, but if you go buy, company A's like French roast,
right,
or Vienna roast or something like that, it's got all these really kind of bittersweet characteristics that dark coffee has. But the thing that I'm not a fan of with dark coffees is when you're done, there's an aftertaste like you just smoked a cigar.
Yeah.
So like with our darkest coffee, our goal was to take it to the limit so you could get that smoky characteristic, but not get that harsh aftertaste. And that's why some people, when I give them, they say, "What's your darkest coffee?" I give them a bag of that, and they're like, "This isn't dark." I'm like, "Oh, well, I get it."
Yeah. Do you like cigars?
I do. I didn't smoke cigars for a long, long time. I used to smoke one every night, and then my kids got to a certain age. I didn't want them to see me smoking, so I stopped. But now, my son he's 23, just graduated college. He's a Marine now, and he's a cigar nerd. So I'll smoke a cigar with him every once in a while.
There you go. Well, tell him thank you for his service.
Will do.
You too. Were you okay with him being a Marine, having being in the Navy? Was there any contention there?
Oh man, that's a loaded question, isn't it? Yeah, I'm okay with him being in any branch of the service he wants to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of InterBrews. While we're getting our refills, this is where I take my time to remind you of InterBrews Patreon page. You can go to patreon.com/InterBrews or interbrews.com/Patreon and join today for as little as $1 an episode. Exclusive content, dozens of shows, and so much more. All right, let's get back to our interview. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so I guess I've got to ask this since Austin, I feel Austin probably has had a little bit of a different approach than outskirts of. We're not in Houston. We're outskirts of Houston. It's very different where we are as far as pandemic kind of stuff and how businesses have adapted and people's attitudes towards things. How have you guys coped with all the pandemic stuff over the last couple of years? Are there any unique challenges other than just things sucking all the way around that we've all gone through? Or?
Yeah, I think the challenge is for us, just like any other retail business, is just you can't please everybody, no matter what you do, right? Mm-hmm. So it is what it is, man. I'm personally a big fan of being able to make your own decisions. And, some customers don't like that. Some employees don't like that, but if you force people to do something, some employees don't like that and some customers don't like that either. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. It's, I've said this on the last few episodes of the podcast. We've gone from, getting through like the meat of the pandemic and people being scared about the actual, the disease, right? But now we've been shut in for so long collectively, and we're trying to get back to normal society. Places like Cuvee Coffee and brewery tap rooms are going to play an integral, role in like societal reacclimation to normal, right? It's we need as people to be sitting across a table from people sharing, talking over a cup of coffee or talking over a beer or both, depending on how long the conversation goes. We need it. And, places like yours I think are going to play a big role in getting people back to normalcy or whatever whatever normal is.
I hope so. We're actually getting ready to open our second shop. It'll be before March, so late February probably it'll be open.
What's the location?
It's just right off Rainy Street.
Okay.
So
have you considered Cypress? Just random.
I'm gonna talk to the guys at Lone Pint and see if I can open up right next to them.
They're getting a new location, right?
I didn't know that.
They bought. I think it's Blake was here. He's saying I think they bought 7 acres. Or so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Because their place now is cool. I don't know when's the last time you've been there. It was very small.
Probably less than a year ago.
Okay, so out under the big trees and everything, right? It's in the shipping containers and everything. It's a cool spot, but they've maxed out capacity pretty quick. And so they've got this new property, and it'll be really cool to see what they do. But yeah, I would be okay with you opening near because the new location is not far from the current location, so I'm okay with that. If you want to do that, and if you need somebody to do a podcast from there daily, let me know.
There you go. Perfect.
That's
podcast booth, a beer window on one side, coffee window on the other.
Yeah, that's always been like that thing on the horizon that I thought would be super cool. Would be like a neighborhood spot that had coffee and beer, and then I could do the podcast from there.
Yep.
As well, and have these amazing conversations. Maybe I get to be a part of them. I don't know. I love awesome conversations about deep philosophical things. But I don't know that I'm smart enough to really handle all of that. So I just.
Joe Rogan does it pretty well.
Yeah, that guy. Have you seen him around town?
I haven't. No.
He had Whitmeyer's. I've got a bottle up here of their whiskey. He had some on their show. I bet we can get him to put some Cuvee Coffee on the show.
He's a Black Rifle Coffee guy, man.
Oh, well, I mean, they're fine, I suppose. But
yeah, they're good people.
They're no Cuvee, though.
But hey, what I was saying about the other space is the new place we're opening up. The space is really cool, and so we're planning on getting back to doing like really fun beer events, like we used to do at our place when we first opened up.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, I remember when I first discovered you. I remember telling my wife, like, "Hey, check this place out. We need to go when we go to Austin," because her family was in Round Rock. They're out in Temple and that area. But I was like, so we were up there a lot, and it's just like, let's make time to go there. It's such a cool deal. I'm glad you guys are opening up another spot. Do you think about anything past that? I know it's like so close, and I'm sure it's opening a business is a big deal, or a location, whatever. But do you look at maybe more locations past that at all, or are you just taking it one location at a time?
Yeah, well, look, I wasn't even looking to open the second one, but it's just an opportunity that I felt like I'd have been dumb to refuse.
Okay.
So I went ahead and did it, and and we're actually going to be the building that we're in is a 32-story high-rise condos, and we're actually going to run the whole beer program for the whole place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they have a rooftop pool, and we'll be doing beer service in the pool, and cool. Yeah, so it's going to be we'll probably sell more beer than we do coffee. I would venture to say.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
When is that going to open?
It should be end of February. So everybody's saying we'll be open before South by.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what the goal is. As long as we're open before South by, we'll be good.
Okay. Yeah, South by is crazy. It's a wild time in Austin.
Yeah.
So, Austin, man, Austin is just blown up. Like that's mildly, right?
Yeah.
Like since you've like since you've started, since you opened the original location and everything, it's Austin's wild.
Yeah, when we opened that original location, man, I mean, our place was literally a destination. So there was Counter Cafe and us. We were the only things that far in East Austin, you know, and then then just watching that whole street grow up with all the condos and apartments and retail, and it's been crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of really good breweries and
Zilker is just a few blocks down from us, and those guys are great. They put out some amazing beers.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to think what other you've got. Probably 3 or 4 breweries that are really close.
Yeah, Blue Owl is a little further east.
Okay.
Zilker is down, just a couple blocks down, closer to downtown. Oh man, there was one other one. Somebody just told me about this right around the corner. I can't remember what it is. If they listen to your podcast, they're going to come over and punch me in the throat probably for not remembering.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Just put it in there's a Google map of Texas beers. I don't know where I don't know where I found it. I've just had it for years now, and they update it all the time because it needs to be updated. But it's a Google map. I guess you can just Google Texas beer map, I guess.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's got every brewery and like designated. I wish I knew who did it. I don't think it's Andrew from Andrew Schwab. I don't know that's. I don't know, but anyway, I've got it on my phone, and that's how when I'm, when we're taking trips for whether it's gymnastics competitions or basketball games, or what the girls are in, or we're just doing family vacations to wherever, I do it with the beer map to see what I'm going to be around and what's close. So. That's
genius. I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah, it's really, if you're going to drive around Texas, it's the map to use, because there's every town you go to now, it seems there's a brewery there or close.
Yep.
So there's no real brewery deserts unless you're in the actual desert.
Right. Got it.
But,
were you ever, when you went to the coffee bar, did we have the Crowler in there, or is that while we were battling the TABC?
Oh yeah. It was that. It was pre-raid.
Okay.
Let me ask you about that. If you have time to talk about the raid, like I don't want to keep you too long, but
yeah, sure.
The raid, that was it. We covered that when we did. So InterBrews started 10 years ago, but then in like 6 years ago, we started our live show, Liquid Lunch, and now with all the changes, I've kind of wrapped them all back in together. And I plan on doing more live streams. This one is not being live streamed, but I plan on doing more live. So if you ever have something that comes up and you want to do a live stream, let me know, and we'll get out to all our peoples. But the raid. What was that like? Did they come in like crashing through the windows like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation? That's what I imagine.
It's kind of like that. It was. So I was out of town. I was actually in a brewery in Philadelphia, and I was sitting at the bar and sampling beers, and then my phone just started blowing up, and so I got multiple phone calls from my manager at the coffee bar, and I called her back, and she was literally in tears. She's like, "The police just raided us. They're taking everything." And it was just crazy.
To think about that now, the Crowler machine of all things.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put that in a movie now, they'd be like, "That's silly."
It was such a weird, surreal thing. We had a beer event, and somebody complained. It was multiple breweries, and I think one brewery, had their feelings hurt for some reason, and so they complained to the TABC that we were doing some sort of illegal marketing practices, like some brewery gave us signage or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Uh-huh.
So, but it was something dumb like that. And to the agent that came in, she asked us, "What is that thing?" So I showed it to her, and she was like, "You can't do that." And I go, "Why not?" She goes, "I don't know, but you can't do that. You need to remove that thing." And I was like, "What?" So then I started down this path with the TABC, and it became really obvious that they had no idea why I shouldn't be doing that, but they were just hell bent on making sure I wasn't allowed to do that.
Yeah. Man, it was Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I pulled it, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to work with you. I don't want to break the law or anything. And then it started snowballing, and they called me into their office, and they were like, all right, well, here's the deal. You know, you've got 20 some $1,000 in fines right now. So what we'll do is we'll knock it down to $3,000, and, you know, and that'll be it. And I was like, okay, awesome. Do I get the crowler back? And they said, no. I said, okay, forget it. And then we got a lawyer to help us, this guy named Angel Tomasino down in San Antonio. So really smart guy, you know, knowledgeable about craft beer, was really interested in that industry. So what I found out was the only way for us to actually be able to fight the TABC to take them to court is if they issued us a citation. And so I was like, okay, can you guys just give me a citation? They were like, well, no, you have to break the law in order for us to give you a citation. I was like, okay, I'm putting the crowler back in. And that's when we had a big party, and we had these "come and take it" T-shirts made up, and they had a crowler on them.
Yeah.
We put the crowler in, you know, put out on social media that we were serving crowlers again. And and that's when they raided while I was out of town. They released a press release from the parking lot minutes before they raided our place. No joke. It's crazy.
Do you wish you had been there?
No, I'm actually glad I wasn't there.
Do you think they would have cuffed you?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Because you're canning. You're not even canning. You're filling this vessel made of this material versus this vessel made of this material, which this one's okay with the flip top. That's okay. Or the screw top. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the fact that it spins in a circle and seals, and it's made of aluminum or aluminium.
Yeah, they said that we crossed over into manufacturing, and anyway, we finally did get to go to court, and you know, we had a handful of brewery people, like Jeff Stuffings from Jester King. He was one of our expert witnesses, and I mean, we had a handful of them. It was great, and literally, man, our attorney was so amazing too. He just started pulling stuff out, and he was like, "Okay, so you can put it in this bottle," and they're like, "Yeah." And he was like, okay, can you put it in this mason jar? They're like, yeah. He's like, okay, can you put it in this tennis ball can? And they were like, well, we wouldn't recommend that. He goes, but could they? He's like, yeah. And finally, he got somebody on the TABC to say, he said, well, what can't you put it in? And they were like, a can is the only thing you can't put beer in. And the judge was basically, I mean, he was like, pfft. Then here's the other crazy part. We won the case. They didn't give the crowler back to us.
Oh no, where is it?
Yeah, well, we have it now,
Okay.
but literally, I think Abbott was the governor back then. Yeah, it was Abbott.
Mm-hmm.
So I called his office, and he or somebody in his office actually called and said, "Look, give him this thing back." And they had to give it back to me finally, but they apparently there's some rule that just because we won the case, they didn't have to give it back to us if they didn't want to.
There's probably a home brewer on the the agency. He's probably like, I'm gonna can some beers at home.
Maybe I don't
find
know.
a way.
Yeah,
There's
that was an interesting experience, man.
That's wild. I mean, it's like so silly, like, but at the same time, just like. I remember just watching all that go down. It's just, I don't know. It makes for a fun story, though.
It does. It was so. It's almost like a made-up story. It's so crazy. But I will say, my most recent dealings with the TABC over the past few years, they've been really great.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole different regime over there now.
Yeah. It's all changed, and that's good. Because, I mean, who doesn't love beer and who doesn't love coffee? It's like, why do we need to make it more difficult?
Yeah.
There's no point.
Yeah. And I love going to, where was I just the other day, man? I went to Real Ale, and I also went to Meanwhile. Okay. And both of them have crowler machines in there. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. I love pretty much every every brewery I go into, they have a crowler machine.
Yeah, you can get them for home now.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, Oktoberfest makes them. You can make them at home. You can get different size cans and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so check that out.
That takes home brewing to a whole nother level when you can can your own beer.
Oh yeah, that's I don't know. What do you can you can condition? I guess you can condition. I guess, but I don't know. Probably better to fill it off the keg.
Yeah,
with a beer gun. Anyway, all those things.
You'll have to get one and experiment.
Yeah. No. I have been in contact with somebody from Oktoberfest, so maybe we can work something out. We'll see. But anyway, well, Mike, I don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been a fun conversation. I think the only thing that would make it better is if we got to do it in person with some coffee and beer in front of us, or coffee beer, maybe some Sputnik. Yeah.
Next time you come into the Austin area, man, you just let me know and we'll make that a reality.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll absolutely do it. I don't know when it'll happen. Like I said, I got a baby coming in of just weeks away.
Yeah.
But
congratulations on that, and yes, it'll be a while.
Yeah. No, thanks. I'm excited. But these bags under these eyes are about to go to another level.
Yeah.
The
gray hair.
The gray hair, but and the coffee consumption. I'm going to be mainlining cans of Nitro Coffee, so Nitro Cuvee. So that'll be
all right.
How I'm going to survive. All right, everybody. Cuvee Coffee. You can find it at any reputable, store, any place worth going where you buy coffee has it. All the forms, whether you the Keurig or the whole bean or the pre-ground or the nitro in cans to take on the road with you. They've got the vacuum sealed nitro coffee or the cold brew ready to go, hot or cold, either way, however you like it. Delicious Cuvee coffee is available to make your day better. And you can travel to Austin and maybe you'll see Mike there, and you can, talk about Crowlergate or whatever, or just life.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, Mike, thank you so much. This has been a great episode because of you, sir. Thank you.
I always enjoyed talking about beer, and now you've inspired me to go drink one.
Good. That's the whole point of the show. All right, everybody. Cuvee Coffee, Mike McKim, the great Mike McKim, and go try some Cuvee Coffee. Thanks, everybody, for listening. So for Mike, I'm Josh. We'll see you next time. This is InterBrews.
This is InterBrews.
The preceding has been a presentation of Stewed Productions.